Let's talk about how Florida enslaved and forced the voluntary exile of free Black people, shall we? Yeah. So we talked about how the United States obtained Florida from Spain, right? Now, before this, Spain was like, come one, come all to Black people, enslaved Black people, right? They said, come to Florida, be an indentured servant for a few years, convert to Catholicism, we'll set you free, right? Black people came in droves. Now, the United States obtained Florida through the Adams-Onis Treaty in 1819. Florida becomes a territory in 1821. Then it enters the Union as a slave state in 1845. Black people, seeing the writing on the wall, are like, I'm out of here. That was starting in, of course, 1819, 1821, and they used the saltwater underground railroad to make their way to the Bahamas, right? So there's very little free Black people left in Florida, right? Right. By 1850, there are about 932 free Black people in the state, and there's not been much increase by 1860. Yet, they are vexing, that's my new word, vexing the white Floridians. You see, free Black people became an evil that must be eradicated. Floridians considered free Black people a menace to the state. It was said that free Blacks had a demoralizing effect on the enslaved Black people because free Blacks could travel freely. They could work and spend their money that they earned, causing dissatisfaction among the enslaved population. It wasn't that being enslaved was causing dissatisfaction. No, no. Free Black people were showing enslaved Black people that freedom was better than enslavement and that freedom was actually possible. Free Black people were undermining the system of slavery, and slaves had to be shown that there was no advantage to being free. No. So, free Black people became victims of the slaveholders' fears. 1850, the Leon County, they petitioned the General Assembly to have all Blacks removed from the state. They thought that free Blacks in Florida constituted an evil of no ordinary magnitude and that prompt action should be taken to remove them from the state and an appropriation be made to pay for the expense of their removal. Now, the General Assembly did not pass an act to remove free Blacks from the state of Florida. However, they did pass acts that would force the voluntary exile of free Blacks, starting in 1847, when they said that free Blacks had to have guardianship, white guardianship. Now, this act, well, nobody really followed the act. No, white people were not going around becoming guardians of Black people, and Black people were not going around asking white people to be their guardians. And that was crazy. It's the Act of 1856 that was the straw that broke the camel's back. You see, the Act of 1856, it reinforced the Act of 1847, the act that said all Black people, all free Black people, had to have a white guardian. You remember that, right? Now, it reinforced the Act of 1847 by imposing a fine of $10 or more for those who did not establish guardianship. They were subject to a jail sentence and court costs if the fine was not paid. But here's the kicker. The act prohibited any white person from trading with a free Black person who did not have written consent from their white guardian. And the white guardian must be a person of good reputation. A white person could not trade with a free black person who did not have written consent from their white guardian who was a person of good reputation. There goes my livelihood. Black people were like, you know what? I let a lot of stuff go. I did. It's bad enough that you passed a revenue act where white men, only white men, are paying 55 cents and all black people are paying $3.50. It's bad enough that you told me that I had to have a white guardian. It's bad enough that you told me that I had to register with a judge probate and give you all my business, tell you everything about myself and pay $1 to do it. But now you're affecting my money. I draw the line at my hair, my God, my children, and my money. I'm leaving. Now, they probably didn't say all of that, but it's probably close. Yeah. So, black people, probably using the saltwater underground railroad, got up out of there and made their way to the Bahamas. Now, granted, not all free black people left the state of Florida. For those who did stay, however, there was a legislative act of 1858 that allowed them to choose their own master and become enslaved. No, I kid you not. They were able to choose their own masters and become enslaved. For Florida, like the other southern states, it came down to control of black people. They feared free black people. They feared the example that free black people were setting for enslaved people. They feared the fact that they had no say and no control of a certain group of black people. So they set about correcting what they thought was a hierarchical error in the relational dynamic. They passed laws putting free black people under the thumbs, under the control of white people.